Imagine living with this girl, Mike.
No.
She has just got to be, man, just a handful to be around.
Well, as we are starting off a new year here at Wregret HQ, it's time for me to once again dip my toe into the waters of TNA Wrestling. The beginning of 2011 is certainly an interesting time in this company's history, and this week we're taking a deep dive into it with TNA Genesis. Hey, superstar, so popular. From the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida on January 9th, 2011, just one day before my 26th birthday. This show was nominated by Nate Pruitt over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. Allow me to set the stage for you here for this show. At this point in TNA's history, the company is being ruled with an iron fist by Fortune Immortal. That is the union between Fortune and Immortal. So you've got Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Eric Bischoff pretty much running the show right now in TNA from a kayfabe perspective. But back in November, TNA President Dixie Carter filed an injunction against the group, forbidding Hulk Hogan to be on TV doing any TNA-related business for the time being. In reality, it was a way to write him off of TV so he could have back surgery. But right now, Fortune Immortal is definitely under the gun here, and Eric Bischoff is making all of the wrestlers feel the heat. Their goal on this night is to clean up and win all the championships in TNA. Ooh, maybe the Knockouts Championship too, perhaps? Nah, that's the girls' belt. No girls allowed in Fortune Immortal. The opening hype package focuses on the main event matchup of Matt Morgan and Mr. Anderson for the #1 contendership for the world title. Here you see them standing on little rotating discs. Also, I noticed in this package there is a lot of echo in certain points and certain lines of dialogue between Anderson and Morgan.
And I will be the next TNA World Heavyweight Champion.
TNA World Heavyweight Champion.
And I said, I can do that. Fair and square.
I have to say, having never really watched much of TNA during this time period, especially none of Jeff Hardy's heel run, it is pretty impressive for me to see him really flourish in this heel role. I never really like to hear Jeff talk in general, but then when you hear him cut these heel promos and being the Antichrist of wrestling and whatnot, I actually do like this spin on his character. It's unique to me as someone who didn't watch Jeff as a heel here, and his promos, I think, are very good at just evoking hatred and heat. So I will say, even though I think he's a much better babyface than a heel, I think that's just kind of the style that he is just more attuned to. I think Hardy as a heel with Immortal, I think it's working for him here. But make no mistake, we are in the midst of the Jeff Hardy downward spiral at this point. He is awaiting sentencing for being caught with loads of drugs in his house back in 2009, and then at the end of 2010 at Final Resolution, he was practically in no shape to compete against Matt Morgan, but they pushed through and the match happened anyway. And don't forget, we are not far off from Victory Road 2011, the infamous incident between he and Sting in the main event. So yeah, definitely a rough patch for Hardy at this point. 1,100 folks packed the Impact Zone at Universal Studios, somewhere between 17 and 20,000 pay-per-view buys, which is up a lot from the previous year. Mike Tenay and Taz are on the call, and our opening matchup is for the X Division Championship as Jay Lethal, who recently regained the belt against Robbie E on television, defends against Kazarian from Fortune Immortal. He has been dissing Lethal's family and upbringing as of late to bring more heat into this match, and like I said, the goal of Immortal at this point, under the direction of Bischoff, is to win all the championships or else. So Kazarian is the first one under a huge test here. Jay is all over Kaz from the jump. He's very mad at this treatment so far. I love the fan yelling, "Chop him! Chop him!" just before he chops him. Kaz hits a big ol' stalling sidewalk slam on Lethal. That bump looks so stiff. Lethal hits a handspring elbow on Kaz, which takes both men out. Kazarian hits a slingshot cutter on Lethal as Taz does this great delivery comparing Kaz to Antonio Banderas.
He does. Banderas.
Kaz kicks out of Lethal Combination. Later, Frankie goes to Hollywood, and by goes to Hollywood, I mean slaps Jay in the face, which leads to Jay making a huge comeback of strikes. Lethal spending a lot of time up on the top rope. He's cut off by Kaz, but he fights back. Kaz shoved into the referee, Earl Hebner. Kaz crotches Lethal, hits the reverse tombstone piledriver for Kazarian to win the X Division title for a 4th time. I give this opener 3.5 stars out of 5. I thought it was a very solid opening matchup, very go, go, go sort of style. It's not quite like anything else you're going to see on this show tonight, but I think it really works for these two, obviously. Kazarian and Lethal have a great rapport with each other, and it really comes out in this matchup. And with a storyline such as this, where, you know, the heel group is under the directive to win all the titles or else and stuff, it makes sense that, you know, this is the outcome of the first match. You start to see those dominoes beginning to fall, and I think it does help contribute to an overall larger story, which we'll get to as the review goes on. Kind of a sidebar for me on this one. Again, as somebody who did not watch a lot of TNA during this period, does it feel like the X Division title moved around a lot as a championship? Because I feel like you look at so many former X Division champions throughout this period, especially guys like Kazarian and Jay Lethal and, you know, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, guys who held this title like 4, 5, 6, 7 or more times in a very short period of time as well. You know, we talk about belts hot potatoing, you know, from different companies and stuff. This feels like a lot of title changes across not too many people from this period of time. The loyal TNA viewers who were around during this time, did it ever feel to you like the X Division Championship moved around too much? We get a stand-up with Tenay and Taz breaking down the story. Taz is wondering who Immortal wants to win between the main event of Morgan and Anderson. We then go to the office of Ric Flair and Eric Bischoff, and AJ Styles, who's supposed to be wrestling for the TV title later tonight. He's sitting there looking real sad. Flair says that Styles cannot wrestle tonight. Bischoff is irate as he breaks down Immortal's problems. Rick is trying to vouch for AJ here. Styles said he hurt himself while running up to his kid who wrecked his four-wheeler, and that is actually a real story, by the way. He tore his hip flexor and his labrum while playing with his kids at home. So it wasn't an in-ring injury. This is how he gets hurt. So, you know, weirder injuries have happened in wrestling. But Bischoff's like, fuck yo, kids. It's all about Immortal. He calls AJ worthless and tells him to show him something. Says, limp on out of here. Damn, Bischoff is just bringing the heat with this one. And then AJ, in response, shoves this little document tray off the desk and goes, how about that? Ooh, you really got him there, AJ. But what will happen in the TV title match? That remains to be seen. Meanwhile, I just couldn't help but notice this picture of Hulk Hogan in the background. Looks like he's just kind of like floating while sitting or taking a dump. Flair telling Bischoff he'll come up with something. Up next for the Knockouts Championship as Madison Rayne defends against hardcore country Mickie James. Mickie recently put Tara, Madison Rayne's backup, on the shelf after a cage match several weeks ago, broke her arm, and so now Mickie's path toward Madison and the championship she's been wanting since day one in TNA is pretty much undisturbed at this point. A couple weeks before the show, Madison had this big celebration on TV with her fancy fellows, as Taz called them, which was interrupted by Mickie, who embarrassed the champion. Because it's a women's match, Taz refers to the pigeon feathers, says he's obsessed with pigeons. And here's something else that, again, I didn't really know or notice until rewatching this stuff, but that Taz on commentary when the women's wrestlers come out is like as horny, if not hornier, if that were even possible, than Jerry Lawler in his peak pervy commentary mode.
Everybody knows me. I'm in favor of two hot chicks in the cage fighting. Sign me up. Ah, look, she's playing the old inside-out game. I want to do that with one of them. In and out, in and out. Now look at Mickie.
The match begins. Mickie is very jingly. Madison is very shouty. Mickie's boots are shades of the lumberjacks from the AWA, Taz says. He also at one point just shouts, flapjack.
It's called the flapjack.
Okay.
Madison climbs the ropes while she's in a hold and Mickie just drops her. At one point early in the match, there is a "you can't wrestle" chant, which was like bullshit to hear that. I was mad for them when that chant happened because like they're not doing anything wrong. There have been no botches in this matchup, which leads me to believe some of these fans are only saying that because they want to be assholes and because, oh, it's the girls wrestling. But like even that doesn't make any sense because they are both fine, accomplished wrestlers, and they're both like former or current champions. So it's like, what are we doing? Mickie hits a Hurricane Rana, damn near spiking Madison head first. Madison does like a little jig to make fun of Mickie, and Taz like loses his mind because he doesn't know what just happened.
She jumped up in the air. She did like that little conniption or something. What was that about? What the hell happened there?
Madison locks in what Taz calls the Schneebers driver, but Mickie slips out and hits a wheelbarrow, gives Madison a spanking. Taz quietly says, "Oh God." Mickie gets ready for the DDT when Tara comes out with her not quite tattoo theme. We can see the champ loading up her glove, then she just falls down as Taz calls her one red hot possum. She hits a KO punch to Mickie to win and retain. I give it 3.5 stars as well, and you know what? As just batshit insane as it was to hear Taz just go gaga on commentary here, I think just how unhinged he sounded to me kind of added to the match a little bit in a really weird way. I'm glad he doesn't horn it up like this anymore in AEW, but for the time watching this back, I was like, I needed a laugh, and like Taz on commentary here was pretty funny. Christy Hemi's in the promo zone with some members of Immortal. Kaz congratulates himself on being a 4-time champion. Christy brings up Beer Money versus the Motor Shitty Machine Guns.
Beer Money versus the Motor Shitty Machine Guns.
Did you smell that?
Flair's hyping up Beer Money. He rejects James Storm's fist bump. Christy asking Bischoff who's going to wrestle RVD tonight and who's going to replace AJ Styles. Bischoff says Abyss will be taking AJ's place in the title match tonight, but he's keeping RVD's opponent mum for now. He's so confident he repeats his guarantee that they will win all the gold here tonight, except for the Knockouts title. A renewal of the classic rivalry for the TNA tag titles as the Motor Shitty Machine Guns defend against Beer Money Inc. In the hype package, James Storm says the Guns are wrestling small guys like them, so they haven't proven themselves yet and that they need competition. He also says that he and Robert Roode have been held back, but like, you're working for the top heel stable in TNA. Like, in kayfabe, your bosses run the company, and you're former 3-time tag team champions. How is that being held back? But Sabin and Shelley, they're all heart, they are tough as hell, and they're not the biggest or the baddest, but they're the fastest and the most resilient. I did really enjoy this hype package here. I mean, right away, it's very straightforward. It shows the contrast in styles and philosophies. It brings up their history. And it's a pretty well done hype package. And talk about two teams with some of the best theme music for just saying who they are. The Guns are from Detroit. Beer Money, one of them likes money, the other guy likes beer, tells the story right there. I actually do like listening to these TNA themes here during this time period because, man, a lot of them are just very like biographical. They're very just to the point, tell you exactly what you're gonna get out of these guys, and it works. Alex Shelley with a good old arm smack to James Storm. The Guns hit some stereo dives to their opponents on the outside. A big clubbing clothesline from behind by Bob Roode to Shelley with the referee's back turned. There's some more heat on Shelley. Storm spits at Sabin, which allows for more double teaming. Oh, we get that close call on the hot tag. We get the Beer Money taunt and more spit. A catapult spot on Shelley backfires in a big way. I like that counter. Hot tag is made to Sabin. I love the elevation on Chris's corner drop kick. A very interesting assisted DDT by Alex, though I'm not sure if that's the most practical way they could have done that. Even more spit of the beer variety. We get the double R spine buster. That's a clever name, but still the Guns persist. You see Roode's head get kicked in ×2. The Guns have it won, but wouldn't you know it, Storm pulls out the ref. What a dick. We get some real close kickouts. They are testing me with this one, testing Storm and Roode as well. Some great angry reactions. We get an accidental friend kick by Sabin. The roll-up and the pin. Beer Money regained the tag titles. 4 stars out of 5 for me on this one. This was an awesome matchup, and I think it was a great, addition to their rivalry. These two teams are really just perfect for each other. Like they explain in the hype package, like they are just such great opposites in so many respects, such great rivals, and those clashing styles can make for some amazing storytelling in the ring. And they did a good job making the Guns still look very protected in defeat. The only way they could lose the belts on this night was by having a miscommunication and one hitting the other. I really like that. Backstage in the promo zone, Christy, she of the Hungry Butt, interviews brother Devon. Devon tells brother Ray that tonight is the night to get some payback on the garbage Bubba's been spewing about them as a team. Devon goes back to the old days of youth, the bingo hall, and when he holds his hand out next, it won't be for a tag, it'll be to hit ya. Up next, the implosion of Team 3D is upon us as Bully Ray takes on Brother Devon. Recently, Team 3D got back together for a one-off kind of retirement ceremony deal, but psych, Brother Ray betrayed Brother Devon, and Bubba says he's disappointed in himself for not doing it sooner. And he goes on and on for weeks about how he was the star of the tag team. He's covered for Devon's flaws for a long time. Devon's ridden his coattails for long enough, and now he is on his own. Bubba's been a classic shit heel in all of this, running from Devon, taking cheap shots, and this is also the beginning of his run as Bully Ray. Bully Ray starts things off by leaving the ring and grabbing SoCal Val, who is at ringside these days. It's not the first time he's done this, by the way, but Val slaps Bully and the fight with the brothers is on. I do enjoy Taz's commentary in this matchup because nobody knows these two guys better than him, and so for him to help paint the picture and help describe their relationship over the years is a really good addition to really help flesh out this story further. And I love how he talks about how, Devon was always the more level-headed, the cooler head of Team 3D, but he has that twisted dark side to him as well if you push him the wrong way. And so I like that. It really helped add to this. What the hell's Devon hitting Bully with here? Like a hard plastic water bottle? He's just beating the hell out of Bully here, using his own vest as a weapon. Now that's hater material. The match finally officially begins, and Bully immediately begs off, just keeps saying, "We're brothers! We're brothers!" Hey, he's getting his own echo in. Devon thinks about it for a little bit. He sees Bully's low blow coming and blocks it. Bully powders. The brawl resumes on the outside and into the crowd. Devon using a guy's shoe. Who is he, Conan? Nike Justice, says Mike Tenay. Devon's hyping himself up as the strikes continue, but as I always say, an eye poke's gonna hurt no matter how many crunches you do. Devon leaps off the second rope, but Bully catching him with his end of the 3D. This has been a very entertaining, hard-hitting match. Dare I say, impactful. Bully crotches Devon the same way Kaz did to Lethal in the opener, but this one was right in front of the ref. Oh well. Bully produces a chain, we get a swing and a miss, we get another one. The crowd does not really pop for those misses. It is strange because the crowd is very much alive for a lot of this matchup, and really just the whole show. They do have a lot of good big reactions for certain points, but then there are other moments like throughout the show, and this one's one of them, where they just don't? And did they miss something? Now Devon has the chain. He just whips Bully right in front of the referee, which leads to a DQ. All the referees are pulling Devon away, but the brawl continues. The fans want to see them fight as more officials split things up. We got Simon Diamond. We got D'Lo Brown. By God, these guys are plotting aces and eights in there as we speak. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5. I actually like this match a lot. I mean, the DQ finish on one hand is disappointing, especially because you could hear the fans, the way they reacted to this, it sounded like they really didn't want Devon to use the chain. So then when he does and the bell rings, they're just kind of aw. But besides that DQ finish, which does help set up things more for them down the line, I did think that the story and the brawling and the physicality was very entertaining here. And say what you want about Bully Ray, but hey, that guy knows how to get this classic heel heat. Christy Hemme is backstage with Jeff Jarrett, who is wrestling a returning Kurt Angle in an MMA exhibition tonight. She asks, "How do you feel going against a man of this caliber?" And he goes, "How about the caliber of Double J? Haha, Kurt's never done no MMA, ho-ho, but I am unbeaten in MMA and I got 100,000 smackers to prove it." He says the Double J Double MA exhibition is for the $100,000 and it's going to be 3 2-minute rounds, no striking, just grapples and submissions, because he doesn't want Kurt to get hurt in all this, is what he keeps saying. And he breaks down what he's going to do to Kurt in this one. Round 1, I'm going to feel you out. That's MMA talk, Christy. And then round 2, I'm going to get your tongue wagging. And round 3, I'm going to embarrass you and make you submit and this and that. And he says, you got yourself into this mess, Kurt, and I'm going to get you out of it. And remember, no one's getting hurt. That was kind of a very cryptic and cold-blooded promo from Double J Double MA Jeff Jarrett. In our next matchup for the TNA television title, Doug Williams defends against the Monster Abyss. Back at Final Resolution the previous month, Doug Williams beat AJ Styles for the TV championship. They had a great follow-up matchup on Impact a couple of weeks later. It was a 30-minute Iron Man match that ended in a draw, and they were going to have the blow-off for the next matchup in their series here in this one, but like I mentioned, AJ Styles is injured, and so at the last minute, they have to replace him with Abyss. And during this story, Bischoff was especially hard on AJ, more so than any other member of Immortal, but now this injury kind kind of kiboshes all that build. They point out that Williams is nursing an injured hand which was hurt by Styles before. That is a big plot point here. It's really slowing him down on offense. Aside from the obvious answer of AJ is an Immortal and Doug is not, why does AJ manage to get out of this matchup because of his injury, but Doug Williams, who is also injured, in kayfabe at least, is still required to wrestle? The two fight on the outside. Abyss takes advantage of that injured hand. Williams with an emphatic flying nothing, but he gets goozled and takes a boot. Some "we want AJ" chants as Abyss continues the beat down. He picks up the title belt, goes to crush the hand with it, but misses. The crowd is dead silent for Williams' comeback. This is not the match that they wanted. You can hear individual fans doing their own one-person chants. Williams does hit a top rope flying knee like more than halfway across the ring. Pretty impressive. Abyss hits a big-ass choke slam. Williams gets his hand on the ropes, which leads to some great Abyss face. Abyss then pulls out, oh God, what is the name of this weapon? Why can't I remember it right now? Is it, I want to say it's Petunia? It's not Beulah. Oh wait, Janice, that's it, thank you. Suddenly, AJ Styles shows up in his civvies, decks Williams with the title belt while the referee's distracted. We get a black hole slam and Abyss wins the title. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. I mean, this match is, for all intents and purposes, a big ol' squash. You know, it's a very un-Doug Williams-like match, is a good way of putting it. Like, I get it's too bad AJ's hurt here. You have to imagine that, like, AJ, a healthy AJ versus a one-handed Doug Williams would have made for a far more interesting matchup. More catered to their styles. They probably could have got some clever spots out of it and everything. But because of the last-minute nature of the replacement and whatnot, it's just Doug getting his ass kicked for the bulk of it. But I think they did a good job incorporating the hand injury, which pretty much like debilitates Williams and makes him kind of a sitting duck for Abyss here. Backstage, Rob Van Dam is really irked about this mystery surrounding the mystery opponent. All he wants is Jeff Hardy, and he's tired of waiting to find out who he's going to face. Bischoff says, if you want Hardy, you've got Hardy. Go right now. Meanwhile, we see Jimmy Hart chilling with a format sheet backstage. Like Bischoff has often said in his podcast, Jimmy never met a camera he didn't want to be in front of. So we go to the ring now. RVD, the former champion who never officially lost his title, is going one-on-one with Hardy. Matt Hardy, that is, making his TNA debut with his hideous braids. He looks out of shape and he looks like he's half asleep. What the hell is this? Matt says he wants to shake Rob's hand, saying, I'm not my brother. RVD rejects the handshake and they start swinging. Matt does a little jog, starts to do the little RVD taunt, but is cut off by the master of the double thumb point. But if you listen to what Matt's saying here, he goes like, like, no, that's Jeff Jarrett's gimmick, man. You're not the MMA guy. Mike Tenay has a special word that TNA Genesis is trending on Twitter. Thanks for the Twitter house, Matt.
How do you get all these words? Nobody gives me words. Nothing. I never get special words.
Hardy is kicked off the apron and smacks into the barricade. We get a moonsault off the apron onto Hardy. At one point, there's a fan you can just hear yelling, come on, Raven! I died when I heard that. RVD takes a back bump, collides with the bottom turnbuckle. I also love the way he landed on this bulldog later. Matt using the stroke. Jesus, Matt, do you not know which company you're working for now? He slips on his way up to the second rope and does a flying nothing into a Van Dam kick. There's a flying body scissor, which might have knocked the wind out of Hardy because he is just laid out after that over nothing. What is going on with Matt here? RVD comes back with a flurry of kicks. He hits the 5-star frog splash, goes for the cover, but Matt's hand is barely under the rope and the referee waves it off. RVD walks into the twist of hate. Van Dam's leg is massively under the rope, but the referee misses it, and Hardy wins. This is the beginning of Jackson James's descent into Garrett Bischoff. Somehow, in spite of themselves, I'm going to give this 2 stars out of 5 because this match was definitely ugly at times. Like, you know, Matt's questionable hair choice notwithstanding, he did not look ready for this matchup. Like I said, he had this 1,000-yard stare for half the time, did not look to be in shape, and yeah, it was just an ugly debut for him. And, you know, and like his brother Jeff, he is also going through his own rough patch during this time. Like, he's going to be part of Immortal for a little bit, but like a few months after this, he's going to get a DUI and he's going to be suspended before he's ultimately just cut from TNA for the time being. Backstage, Christy Hemmy's talking to Kurt Angle and she says, Jeff Jarrett said you're not in shape. What do you say to that? Kurt says if Jeff wants to know what kind of shape he's in, to ask his wife. Ooh, you, and he says he's going to have a bunch of fun kicking your ass. And we go now to that Double J, Double MA exhibition as Jeff Jarrett takes on Kurt Angle. Jeff ran Kurt out of the company after Bound for Glory, and then later on, Jarrett made Samoa Joe tap out a couple times and has since taken on his MMA phase. Men, women, children, doesn't matter. He will get them to tap out. He surrounds himself with guys like Gunner and Murphy and other members of Team Jarrett. He's even taken Kurt Angle's elevator entrance since he's been gone. This shit is hilarious. You know, I do remember watching a little bit of this, like when it was first happening, and then revisiting it when watching this for research. Like, this is such a great gimmick. It's such great heel heat. Because, like, you look at Jeff Jarrett, who already has this mountain of, reasons fans don't like him, and now he has taken on this, like, whole MMA persona, because he won a couple of matches by tap out. Suddenly he thinks he's, this ultimate MMA badass, and he's so into the gimmick, and he's got, like, the taped up ankles and the gloves and whatnot and the shorts. This is just amazing heel heat, and I am totally here for it. He's doing this $100,000 MMA challenge. He asks fans, these plants in the crowd, to come into the ring and try and make him submit, and he'll give him $100,000 if they win. He's been making fans tap out. He made the amazing Red tap out, and then Red brought out his, quote, little brother, the debuting Crimsons. That's how Crimson actually got his start in TNA. Then finally, Kurt Angle shows back up and signs the open contract for an MMA exhibition since he can't wrestle again. And this was also during the time when Kurt said he wanted to train for the 2012 Summer Olympics again, but then like a knee injury took him out. But even at that point, like reading those stories, I'm like, get out of here. No, there's no way. Like Kurt Angle at his age and the state that his body was in through all like the abuse from wrestling and whatnot, no way that guy was going to qualify for the 2012 Olympics. They also keep saying he hasn't wrestled in 6 months, but like wasn't Bound for Glory in October? Kurt's on the mic before the match promising that if any of those sons of bitches outside interfere, he'll break their freaking necks. The crowd is very excited for Angle to be back here. Round 1 begins and we get a big "you sold out" chant for Jarrett, which, what? Kurt offers himself up to Jeff on the mat. He seems very relaxed, very Joe Cool about all this, and Jeff is just completely hesitant and very nervous. Kurt easily takes down Jeff and puts him in a hold, but he's saved by the bell. Kurt seems pretty pleased with himself while Gunner tries to motivate Jarrett. Round 2, fight. Kurt's just really having his way with Jarrett now. He's barely breaking a sweat, barely breathing heavy. He's even keeping a tally of points with every takedown. Jeff is once again saved by the bell from the ankle lock. Jarrett spits on Angle after that. We can also see Murphy in the corner possibly slipping something into Jeff's glove and also rubbing something, some kind of substance on his forearm as we head into the 3rd round. Kurt goes after Jeff. He rubs his forearm into Kurt's eyes and he's blinded now. Now Jeff is throwing punches, which I think means the match ends in a DQ, but the bell has to ring like several times and the clock is still running. It's kind of chaotic here at the end. They get a real blatant shot of Kurt gigging himself as Jarrett keeps laying in the punches. Kurt is just laid out and is a bloody mess. Jeff yells that Kurt started it, so he's finishing it. He says he's going to retire his MMA boots undefeated, which, wait a minute, you had taped ankles, you weren't wearing boots. Anyway, he says there's going to be a retirement party this week on Impact, and it'll be 3 people invited. You, me, and you know who. So we can see what's happening here because IRL, backstage in real life, Karen Angle has left Kurt and is now dating Jeff Jarrett. And so we haven't seen her on TV since 2008. So this is going to be the return of Karen Jarrett to TNA programming. And that's where we're going next. I'm going to give this match 1 star out of 5. This is what we have called before an angle disguised as a match. No pun intended for Kurt. But I mean, I loved the story here. You know, Kurt coming back, being so confident and so just like very, very sure of himself that he's going to just like wipe the floor with Jarrett, who's pissing himself in fear. And it takes all this heel chicanery to finally, lay him into the trap and just like get him busted open and beat the crap out of him. Again, that's just great, great heat. Not much of a match, but it's a hell of an angle. Christy Hemme is backstage with the TNA champion Jeff Hardy. He's got some thoughts on Matt Morgan and Mr. Anderson and says he'll be watching this match very closely. Welcome to Chapter Genesis, where anything can happen. What? Then we get the opening hype package again. In our main event, a match for the #1 contendership for Jeff Hardy's TNA title as Mr. Anderson takes on the Blueprint, Matt Morgan. The story here, it's a face versus face matchup here, but there is a lot of tension between these two guys because recently, Morgan has had Jeff Hardy's number. He's pinned him twice in his quest to become TNA champion, but he's fallen short of actually claiming the belt for himself. Meanwhile, at one point, Jeff Hardy dinked Mr. Anderson with a chair and gave him a concussion, so we're getting this concussion storyline for Ken during this time. Is he in good enough shape to wrestle? And Morgan is doing this very kind of conflicted babyface thing where he says, I want to protect you, Ken, like I'm looking out for you. It's like, this is why I got kicked out of Immortal, because I'm trying to protect you, but at the same time, when the bell rings, all bets are off. We're not going to be friends anymore, and I'm going to do what I have to do to win. And this seems to me like they are definitely trying to plant the seeds for Morgan turning heel at some point here. And, the build for this even sees the return of Mick Foley to television. He showed up in December. Some of his final TNA appearances took place during this time as he's trying to make the case for Anderson's health, and he's trying to warn Ken not to push anything or do anything stupid to risk further injury. And it leads to all these other wrestlers kind of calling Foley out for saying, well, you started this, asshole. It's like your reckless behavior in the ring has caused all these other younger wrestlers to try and kill themselves and whatnot and getting injured, and you were the cause of that. And Foley's like, I know I started this, but I'm going to try and end it. Talks about how he and Matt Morgan are going to donate their brains to Christopher Nowinski when they die to test him for CTE and stuff like that. So it's definitely kind of blurring the lines. We're taking some of this reality-based stuff with Mick Foley and trying to tie it into this concussion angle with Mr. Anderson, and it's all just another ingredient to the overall build between these two. I love how Ken's music cuts out before the microphone even lowers into his hand. It felt like the way they cut that, it's like, oh, maybe there's not supposed to be a mic. Oh wait, there it is. JB is doing ring introductions, which seems like a lot for a #1 contendership match, doesn't it? Also, Anderson just introed himself. It's size versus speed in this one. Anderson leapfrogs Morgan early on, which is actually pretty impressive. But what was this fake out that made Kennedy fall in like that? Matt begins to attack the head and those delicious scrambled brains. He goes for a big boot, but Kennedy dodges it and Matt tumbles out of the ring. I just now noticed watching this match, like, wow, these two are actually more alike than different when you think about it, because they're both wearing just really boring-ass, uninspired wrestling gear, and they both have ugly tattoos. Morgan using his strength on Anderson while repeatedly saying he doesn't want to do this to him. Anderson fights back with a chop block, starts focusing on the leg. I hate this leg lock because it looks so easy to counter. Like, what is stopping Morgan from just putting the chin lock on from where he is sitting? A half crab ends in a rope break. We get dueling chants for both guys, the crowd very conflicted by this. Morgan goozles Anderson and chokeslam him down from the second rope. They emphasize all the whiplash he's suffering with every fall and impact. We get a discus clothesline countered into the mic check, but Morgan kicks out. We get trading head punches, the carbon footprint. Anderson still kicks out. Anderson with another mic check, but he can't capitalize. I didn't care for this finish because Anderson just kind of awkwardly collides off of Morgan's body. Matt seems stunned. Anderson hits a small package and he wins. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. This match was just kind of middle of the road for me. It's really tricky when it's a face versus face matchup and like one of them's not turning heel immediately in the process. So it's just kind of like you got both good guys kind of doing their best to each other, but I don't know if they really worked well together here. And so this match is kind of like, it was in the middle for me. But then the show's not over yet, folks, because after the match, out comes Eric Bischoff with a steel chair. He makes his way to the ring and takes a seat. He says he's impressed with Ken's tenacity and courage, and so as a reward, he's not going to make Anderson wait for the title match. Here comes Jeff Hardy right now. Jeff is not dressed to wrestle and has a cigarette in his mouth. This is a good pre-match ritual. I'm glad to see that the champion cares so much about this title match. The match is on and Jeff hits the twist of hate, but Anderson kicks out and the fans are not that impressed.
Whoa! Wow!
We get another twist of hate and another kick out. Anderson is somehow able to dump Jeff out of the ring. Meanwhile, Matt Morgan, who's been selling the whole time on the outside, hits Jeff with a big clothesline, but it's not enough to put the champ away. Jeff's acid-washed jeans are tearing apart as Anderson manages to mount a comeback. I love how Jeff sells the eye gouge and the middle finger. Is that what Ken's doing here? Jeff's on the outside. He grabs the steel chair. Then Mick Foley shows up to take it away. Then here comes Ric Flair to get in Foley's face. Lots of chaos on the outside. Jeff hits the Swanton Bomb. Anderson somehow kicks out as the fans in the Impact Zone are finally waking up and chanting his name. Jeff goes back to the outside, summons brother Matt to come join in, but then RVD shows up and pulls Matt away from the ring. They brawl to the back, but then we see Bischoff back in the ring with the chair. He rears back, but Ken catches him, hits the mic check, then one for Jeff. The cover, the win. Anderson is your new TNA champion. Everybody happy as a result of this. Even one of the fans with an asshole section sign just hops into the ring, but you don't see him very long and they kick his ass out. Damn, guy, let the man celebrate. Well, this might be the highest rated Ken Anderson match you're going to see on this channel, but I give it 4 stars out of 5. Yes, this match was overbooked to hell, but sometimes overbooking can actually help add to a match. I think the story they told here was pretty good. Like, you know, it's Ken coming through these insurmountable odds, having a whole match with Matt Morgan, still dealing with concussion symptoms. Jeff Hardy saunters in, you know, very cocky and very full of himself, and ultimately bites Jeff and Immortal in the ass with all these different run-ins and whatnot, and, you know, all these different points in the match where you thought, oh, well, this is going to be it. This is how Anderson loses, but he keeps coming back. And once the crowd finally gets it and starts waking up and cheering him on more, then I think that's that fever pitch when he finally does overcome the odds and wins the title. It's a very cathartic, satisfying end to this show when it's just been heel city, just dominating almost every match up to this point. You got to have the fans going home happy after a card like this, and I think this was really an ideal way to end it. My final grade for TNA Genesis 2011 is a B-. This is a pretty enjoyable show. Like, there's no real bad matches on this card, and there are a couple of really bright spots throughout. And I also enjoyed a lot of the stories they're telling here. Like, the Matt Hardy debut was kind of a dud, and you know, the Morgan-Anderson match was just kind of there for me, but the way they kind of came back to it and had Ken winning the big gold in the end really made up for that kind of like, kind of underwhelming like main event match. So definitely a fun show to watch, especially, you know, if you're like me and, you know, you're not that deep into the TNA lore during this time. It's actually a pretty darn good show. But what did you think of Genesis 2011, and how about this review? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and hit that bell icon for all the notifications. Well, January 2011, we saw what TNA is doing here, but what's the WWE doing around this time? Well, only getting ready for the largest Royal Rumble in history. Can you believe it? 40 guys are going to be in this year's Rumble match. So what's the worst that could happen? We're going to find out in 2 weeks when I review the 2011 Royal Rumble. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.